Maya Chin woke to the sound of waves breaking against the shore, the rhythmic crash pulling her from sleep at exactly 5:30. Her neural implant hadn't even needed to trigger the alarm. 2 years of this routine had wired her body to wake with the tide. She lay still for a moment, watching the first hints of dawn filter through the salt-stained windows of her cottage, the light turning the room a soft gray blue. The cottage was small, 800 square feet of weathered wood and mismatched furniture she'd collected from estate sales and vintage markets. Her mother called it charmingly rustic in that tone that meant embarrassingly poor. The couch sagged in the middle. The kitchen table wobbled unless she wedged a folded napkin under one leg. Her wetsuit hung over the shower rod, still damp from yesterday's dive. Stacks of research papers covered every flat surface, marked up with her handwritten notes because she still preferred ink to holographic annotations. Jars lined the windowsills, sand samples from 43 different beaches, labeled with dates and coordinates in her precise script. She made coffee in a ceramic mug with a crack running down one side. The words "Save the Oceans" faded from countless washes. The coffee maker was 15 years old, bought used, temperamental but reliable if you knew its quirks. She did. While it gurgled and hissed, she pulled her hair into a messy bun and checked her wrist display out of habit. 3 messages from her mother. She swiped them away without reading. The beach was empty when she walked down, sand cold under her bare feet. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, painting the sky in layers of pink and orange and deep purple. She spotted Jake already in the water, sitting on his board beyond the break, waiting. Her chest tightened the way it always did when she saw him, 2 years and that hadn't faded. He turned when she waded in, pushing her board ahead of her, and his face split into that easy smile that had first caught her attention at an ocean cleanup event. Sun-kissed skin, salt-dried hair that stuck up in all directions, the kind of athletic build that came from actual use rather than gym subscriptions. He paddled toward her as she ducked under a wave. "Still coming to your parents' thing tonight?" he asked when she surfaced beside him. Her face must have done something because his smile softened into concern. "Yeah," she said. "You sure you want to subject yourself to that?" He reached out and pulled her board closer to his, closing the distance between them. Water dripped from his shoulders, caught the early light. "Wherever you go, I go." His hand found hers where it gripped the rail of her board. "Besides, I'm curious to meet the people who don't see what I see when I look at you." She wanted to tell him they'd probably tear him apart. That her mother would take one look at his beat-up Jeep and discount him entirely. That Victoria would smile with all her teeth and none of her eyes and make some comment about alternative lifestyles. That her father wouldn't even bother to remember his name. Instead she leaned across the gap between their boards and kissed him, tasting salt and the mint tea he drank every morning. His hand came up to cup the back of her neck, thumb stroking the sensitive spot behind her ear that made her shiver. "Catch some waves before we have to face the sharks," he murmured against her mouth. She laughed and pushed away from him, paddling hard for the lineup. Behind her, she heard him following, and for just a moment she let herself feel what it was like to be chosen, to be wanted. To be enough exactly as she was. The memory started on the drive to her parents' house in Palisades Heights. Maya had tried to avoid this route, but all roads led there eventually when you were summoned. The highway stretched before her, her Honda's autopilot engaging as traffic thickened. She overrode it immediately. She preferred to drive herself, even if it flagged her as low status to the luxury vehicles that surrounded her, their passengers reclining in massage seats while their cars handled everything. Age 8. She'd brought home a report card, straight A's in everything. Her mother had glanced at it while scrolling through her neural feed, barely focusing. "That's nice. Dear. Did you hear Victoria made student council president? The youngest in the school's history. We're so proud." Maya had stood there holding the paper, watching her mother's eyes glaze with the telltale shimmer of someone absorbed in their display. She'd put the report card on the counter and walked away. Later she'd found it in the recycling, coffee-stained, age 16. The state science fair. She'd spent 6 months on her project about microplastic filtration in marine ecosystems. Her father had attended, or his body had, anyway. He'd sat in the audience checking his wrist display every few minutes, his foot tapping with impatience. They'd had to leave before awards were announced. Victoria had a debutante rehearsal. Maya had won first place. She'd accepted the trophy alone, the only student without family in the audience. The memory of walking back to her display booth, holding the crystal obelisk, watching other families celebrate together, that still ached when she prodded it, age 22. Her college graduation. Summa cum laude, biology degree, acceptance letters from 3 top graduate programs. Her mother's response over dinner, "But what will you do with that?" Victoria's already making 6 figures in real estate. She just closed a deal on a property in Neo Marina. $4 million. $4 million. Can you imagine? Maya had imagined. She'd imagined her mother listening to her explain her research interests. She'd imagined her father asking about her graduate school plans. She'd imagined Victoria congratulating her instead of live-streaming the dinner to her 2 million followers, angling for the perfect shot that made her look glamorous and made Maya look washed out in comparison, age 28. She'd received a grant for her coral reef restoration research, competitive, prestigious, the kind of thing that got mentioned in academic circles. Victoria had laughed, actually laughed, when Maya had tried to share the news. "You're almost 30 and still in school? When are you going to get a real job?" Brandon says people with advanced degrees are just afraid of the real world. Brandon. Victoria's husband. Hedge fund manager. The kind of man who measured his worth in quantum credits and neural implant upgrades and the exclusivity of his club memberships. Maya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The highway exit for Palisades Heights loomed ahead, one of those planned communities where every house cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, where the streets were named things like Prosperity Boulevard and Excellence Terrace, where your social credit score determined which shops you could enter and which restaurants would accept your reservation. She took the exit. The Rosewood Country Club occupied 12 acres of prime coastal real estate, its architecture all sweeping white. Curves and floor-to-ceiling glass panels that caught the afternoon sun and threw her back in blinding reflections. Maya pulled into the parking area and watched as valets in crisp uniforms rushed to open doors for Tesla XS, Mercedes autonomes, even a few of the new Apex luxury cruisers that cost more than her cottage was worth. Her 2010 Honda Civic sat among them like a relic from another era. Which, technically, it was. The valet who approached her looked pained. "Ma'am, if you're here for the staff entrance, that's around. I'm here for the Chin anniversary party," Maya said, keeping her voice level. "Daughter of the guests of honor," his expression flickered, surprise, then poorly hidden disdain, then professional neutrality. He opened her door without another word. She handed him the physical key, which seemed to confuse him for a moment before he remembered how manual locks worked. She'd chosen her dress carefully, a simple navy sheath she'd found at a consignment store, $45 but well cut, elegant in its simplicity. No neuroreactive fabric that changed color with your mood. No embedded lighting that pulsed with your heartbeat. No smart material that adjusted its fit throughout the evening. Just fabric and thread and a decent seamstress. The entrance hall was decorated in that aggressive opulence that wealthy people called tasteful, crystal chandeliers with enough computing power to run a small city, holographic displays showing curated moments from her parents' 40-year marriage. Waiters offering champagne from trays that floated at shoulder height using magnetic fields. The guests were exactly what she'd expected, her parents' friends and business associates, all dressed in the latest fashion tech, all wearing their net worth on their bodies through jewelry that doubled as data displays and accessories that marked their social standing as clearly as badges. She spotted her sister before Victoria spotted her. Hard not to. Victoria Chin Morrison arrived like a force of nature, her chauffeur-driven Escalade pulling up to the entrance as Maya stepped inside. Through the glass walls, Maya watched her sister emerge in a dress that had to be Chanel's new smart couture line. The fabric shifted through subtle shades of gold and cream as she moved, responding to her neural commands. Cartier diamonds at her throat, wrists, ears. Her hair was perfect, her makeup was perfect, her smile was perfect as she air-kissed people whose names she'd probably forgotten immediately. Brandon followed, loud even from a distance, his booming laugh carrying across the entrance hall as he greeted someone Maya didn't recognize. Their kids trailed behind, Sophia 16 and already her mother's daughter in a dress that cost more than Maya's monthly stipend, Marcus 14 and radiating boredom through his slouched posture and the way he jabbed at his neural interface without looking up. Maya. Aunt Linda descended on her with the enthusiasm of a predator spotting wounded prey. I almost didn't recognize you without your, well, you know. That ocean smell. She laughed at her own joke, the sound like breaking glass. Hi, Aunt Linda, Maya said, accepting the obligatory air kiss. You look well. Oh, I've had some work done. Linda touched her face, which had that too smooth quality of recent rejuvenation treatments. You should try it, dear. It's never too early to start investing in your appearance. Though I suppose on your budget. She trailed off meaningfully. Uncle Robert joined them, drink already in hand despite the party having just started. Maya. Still playing with dolphins, or did you finally get a real career? Marine biology research, Maya said. Coral reef restoration, mostly. How earthy. Robert took a long drink. Your mother was just telling us about Victoria's latest deal. 40 million, can you imagine? 40 million. That girl has a gift, she does, Maya agreed, because what else was there to say? Victoria found her moments later. She always did, circling back to Maya at family events like a shark that couldn't help checking on the weakest fish in the water. Maya. Victoria's embrace was brief, perfunctory, scented with something that probably cost more per ounce than Maya's entire outfit. She pulled back and looked Maya up and down with a practiced eye. Oh my God, is that the same dress you wore to Jennifer's wedding? I love how you make things last. So, sustainable. The word sustainable came out like an insult wrapped in admiration. It's a good dress, Maya said. Of course it is. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. Where's this boyfriend Mom mentioned? The one who teaches, what was it, surfing, Maya said. He teaches surfing. Among other things, how romantic. Victoria's tone suggested it was anything but. I can't wait to meet him. Brandon will be thrilled, he's always saying we should be more in touch with the working class. It's good for perspective, you know. Maya felt her jaw tighten but kept her expression neutral. Years of practice. Jake's parking. He'll be here soon, I'm sure he will. Victoria patted her arm in that condescending way she'd perfected. You know what? Good for you, Maya. Really. Not everyone needs to chase success or status or any of that. Some people are just happy being simple. There's nothing wrong with that. She drifted away before Maya could respond, pulled into conversation with someone whose neural display marked them as a level 7 executive, the kind of person Victoria collected like trading cards. Maya found a corner and pretended to study her wrist display, scrolling through nothing, just giving herself something to do with her hands. Around her the party swirled, Conversations about stock options and property values and which private islands were the best investments and who'd gotten into which exclusive clubs. Her mother held court near the holographic displays, Patricia Chin in her element, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Maya earned in 6 months, her laugh bright and performative as she accepted congratulations and admiration. Her father stood slightly apart, David Chin in his standard formal wear, his expression pleasant but distant in that way he had of being physically present while mentally checked out. He was probably reviewing contracts through his neural feed right now, closing deals while appearing to celebrate his anniversary. Maya, dear. Her mother materialized beside her, champagne flute in hand. Why are you hiding in the corner? Come mingle. Oh, and maybe help in the kitchen? The staff seems overwhelmed and Victoria needs to network. She has a potential client here worth 50 million. We can't have her washing dishes when she should be making connections. The casual dismissal shouldn't have stung after 32 years. It did anyway, sure, Mom, Maya said. Patricia squeezed her arm, the gesture somehow both affectionate and dismissive. You're such a help, sweetheart. Not everyone needs to be the star. Someone has to handle the practical things. She swept away, leaving Maya standing there with the taste of unsaid words bitter on her tongue. That woman park cars here or something? Maya turned. Brandon had appeared, apparently done with his important conversations, examining her with the same look her valet had given the Honda. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. I'm the younger daughter, Maya said. Not the help, right. The scientist one. He said it the way other people might say the unemployed one. Must be nice, playing in the ocean all day. Very low pressure career choice, it has its moments, Maya said, I'm sure. He'd already lost interest, his gaze sliding past her to scan the room for more important people to talk to. Victoria mentioned you're dating some surf instructor? That must be fun. Very California. Very casual, he's a good man, Maya said. Oh, I'm sure he is. Brandon's attention was fully elsewhere now, his neural display flickering as he scrolled through data only he could see. He walked away mid-conversation, not even bothering to excuse himself. Maya checked the time. 6:45. Jake would be here any minute. She could survive until then. She'd survived worse, she was wrong about surviving. Jake's entrance made everything infinitely worse and infinitely better simultaneously. He came through the door at 6:53 wearing jeans, nice jeans, dark wash, no holes, but still jeans, and a button-down shirt he'd probably ironed himself based on the slightly crooked collar. His Jeep Wrangler sat in the parking lot like an invitation to judgment, covered in surfboard stickers and sun-faded from years of coastal living. His hair was still damp from a shower. He hadn't worn his neural interface, she noticed. He never did outside of work. Said he preferred the real world, the room noticed him. How could it not? He moved through the country club entrance like he belonged there, which was exactly what made him not belong. No deference. No attempt to impress. Just easy confidence and a smile that reached his eyes as he scanned the crowd for her. Brandon intercepted him first. Of course he did, dude. Brandon's voice carried across the hall, loud enough that conversations paused. You park cars here or something? Jake's smile didn't falter. Nah, just here for the beautiful woman in the blue dress. He crossed the room in smooth strides, and Maya felt her breath catch as he got closer. He'd done something to his beard, trimmed it, shaped it. He smelled like cedar and salt air. When he reached her he didn't hesitate, didn't check to see who was watching. He cupped her face in both hands and kissed her like they were the only two people in the room. It was slow, deliberate, claiming. His hand slid to the small of her back, fingers spreading wide, pressing her closer. Maya's brain short-circuited for a moment, lost in the taste of him, the feel of his body solid against hers, the way he kissed her like she was precious and necessary and exactly enough. When he pulled back she was flushed, breathing harder than she should be from just a kiss. Around them the crowd had gone quiet, that pointed silence that meant everyone was either staring or pretending not to. "Hi," Jake said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Hi," Maya managed, "surf instructor." They both turned. Victoria stood 3 feet away, her expression carefully controlled. "You must be the surf instructor, Jake Morrison." He offered his hand without stepping away from Maya. "And you must be Victoria. Maya's told me a lot about you." Victoria's smile had sharp edges. "Has she? How sweet." She didn't shake his hand. "This is my husband, Brandon." Brandon had approached, apparently unable to resist the spectacle. "Jake, man, good to meet you. So you teach surfing? That must be chill." "Very zen. It has its moments," Jake said, his tone pleasant but his hand still firm on Maya's back. "What do you do when the waves aren't good?" Brandon laughed at his own joke. "Seriously though, that's gotta be seasonal work, right? What do you do in winter?" "I keep busy," Jake said. Patricia Chen had materialized, drawn by the commotion or perhaps by some maternal radar that detected threats to her carefully curated event. She took in Jake's appearance with one sweep of her eyes, the jeans, the Jeep visible through the windows, the lack of status signals that would mark him as acceptable. "Maya." Her mother's voice was carefully controlled. "Could you at least have brought someone appropriate? This is a country club." Jake turned to her, still not letting go of Maya. "I clean up okay when I need to, Mrs. Chen." His smile was easy but his eyes were sharp. "But I've learned the best things in life don't require a country club membership." The temperature in the immediate vicinity dropped about 20 degrees. Patricia's smile went brittle. "How philosophical." She turned to Maya. "Why don't you show your guest to the bar? Dinner will be starting soon." She glided away, back straight, chin high, leaving them in a circle of uncomfortable silence. "That went well," Jake murmured in Maya's ear. Despite everything, Maya laughed. Dinner was exactly the torture she'd anticipated. The tables were arranged in careful hierarchy, her parents at the center, surrounded by their most important friends and business associates, Victoria and Brandon nearby with other successful couples. Maya and Jake were seated at a table near the back with distant cousins and family friends whose names Maya half remembered. The holographic displays cycled through curated moments from Patricia and David's marriage, wedding photos, vacation snapshots, images of Victoria and Maya as children. Maya noticed the ratio was off. For every picture that included her, there were 5 of Victoria. Victoria accepting awards, Victoria closing deals, Victoria at charity galas. Maya existed in the margins, often literally cut off at the edge of the frame. Jake's hand found hers under the table, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. The simple touch grounded her, reminded her she wasn't alone even if she felt it. Patricia stood to give a speech during the main course. She was good at this, the public performance. The carefully crafted words, the way she could make a room lean in to listen. 40 years, she began, her voice carrying easily through the speakers embedded in the walls. 40 years of partnership, growth, success. David and I have built an extraordinary life together. We've raised 2 daughters, created a legacy, established ourselves in this community. She launched into a recitation of their achievements: the house in Palisades Heights, the vacation property in Nova Banff, the art collection, the charitable foundations, the social connections. Then she moved to Victoria. Our eldest, Victoria, has exceeded every expectation. Her success in luxury real estate has been remarkable. Multi-million-dollar deals, prestigious clients, a reputation that speaks for itself. She's given us beautiful grandchildren in Sophia and Marcus. Her husband Brandon's work in finance has been equally impressive. Together they built the kind of life that makes any parent proud. The applause was enthusiastic. Victoria smiled, gracious and practiced. Brandon raised his glass. Sophia took a selfie with the holographic displays in the background. Patricia's gaze moved to Maya's table, and of course, Maya is still pursuing her passion for marine life. The pause was infinitesimal but devastating. We're very proud that she's happy. The word happy landed like a question mark. Polite laughter rippled through the room, not quite mockery but not quite respect either. Somewhere in between, in that cruel middle ground of being dismissed as harmless, unambitious, simple, Maya's grip on her wine glass turned her knuckles white. Under the table Jake's thumb kept tracing those circles, steady and sure. Victoria stood for her own toast, glass raised. To my parents, obviously. But I also want to say something about my little sister. Her smile was warm in that way that looked genuine unless she knew better. Maya has always marched to her own drum. She's never cared what anyone thinks. She's never felt the need to compete or prove herself. I honestly wish I could be that free from ambition. It must be so peaceful. Living such a simple life. To Maya, may we all learn from her contentment. More laughter. More applause. Maya saw people at other tables glancing her way, smiling, nodding, pitying her or admiring Victoria's generous words or both. She wanted to stand up. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them all exactly what her simple life actually consisted of, what she'd accomplished, what she'd built. She wanted to watch their faces change when they realized they'd dismissed someone who could buy and sell half of them. Instead she lifted her glass and smiled and took a sip of wine that tasted like bile. After dinner, Patricia called the family to gather in a private conference room off the main hall. The room was smaller, more intimate, with a table that could seat 20 but held only the immediate family, Patricia and David at the head, Victoria and Brandon on one side with the kids, Maya and Jake on the other. The holographic displays here showed property records, financial documents, legal forms. Your father and I have been updating our estate plans, Patricia began without preamble. We wanted to be transparent about our decisions. You're all adults now. You deserve to know what we've decided. Maya felt her stomach clench. She'd known this was coming. Her mother had mentioned estate planning in her last few messages, but knowing didn't make it easier. Patricia pulled up a three-dimensional rendering of a property Maya recognized immediately. The Malibu house. Beachfront, sprawling, purchased in 1985 when coastal property was actually affordable. Her father's one-bit investment. Current value, $8 million, maybe more depending on the market. This property will go to Victoria, Patricia said, her tone businesslike. She has the business acumen to manage such an asset. She understands property value, investment strategy, legacy planning. It's the responsible choice. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the holographic display. Maya will receive $150,000 in cash and some family heirlooms, Patricia continued. Enough for whatever little things you might need. We think this division is fair given your respective situations. All eyes turned to Maya. She felt the weight of their expectations, the expectation that she'd protest, beg, show that she actually did care about money after all. Victoria's face showed performative sympathy. Brandon looked smug. Sophia was probably recording this for her social feed. Marcus hadn't looked up from his neural interface. Jake's hand found hers under the table again. She held on like drowning. Maya stood slowly. Jake rose with her, his presence solid beside her. You're right, Maya said, her voice steady despite the way her heart was hammering. That's perfectly fair, Mom. Victoria needs that security more than I do. The property should go where it's most appreciated. She turned to her sister. I'm genuinely happy for you, sis. Congratulations. The confusion on Victoria's face was almost worth it. Almost, well, Patricia said, and was that disappointment in her voice? I'm glad you're taking this so maturely, Maya. I learned from the best. Maya kept her tone light, conversational. You taught me that real wealth isn't something you can inherit, it's something you build yourself. Thank you for that lesson. She kissed her father's cheek. He flinched, surprised, his eyes finally focusing on her face. She saw guilt there, quickly suppressed. Jake and I have an early morning, Maya said. We should go. Jake's hand moved from her lower back to her hip. A gesture of solidarity and something more possessive. Together they walked to the door. Maya could feel everyone watching, trying to understand her reaction, unsettled by her grace. At the door, Jake leaned down to whisper in her ear, "You're magnificent," and despite everything, Maya laughed. The sound was real, genuine, the first honest emotion she'd expressed all evening. They left the Chen family in confused silence, the taste of $8 million somehow less satisfying when no one cried over losing it. The parking lot outside Maya's cottage was empty when she pulled in at 6:30 the next morning, but the damage was already done. Someone, Victoria, probably, or one of her social media-obsessed friends, had tagged the location of the Chen anniversary party with enough detail that a gossip site had picked it up. Maya's wrist display lit up with notifications she ignored, scrolling past headlines like Chen daughter's modest lifestyle raises questions and family inheritance drama at Palisades Heights Gala. She sat in the Honda for a full minute, forehead against the steering wheel, before forcing herself to move. The cottage felt smaller when she entered, the walls pressing in. Jake's Jeep wasn't in the driveway. He'd texted around 5 that he had an early session, which probably meant some athlete had thrown out their back and needed emergency treatment before a game. She missed him anyway, missed the way he took up space in her small kitchen, missed his terrible singing in the shower, missed the weight of his hand on her lower back. The coffee maker gurgled to life. Maya stood at the window watching the ocean turn from gray to blue as the sun rose, her reflection ghosted in the glass. 32 years old. Senior scientific advisor. Property owner. Financially independent. Still waiting for her mother to ask about her life instead of comparing it to Victoria's, her wrist display buzzed again. This time she looked. Victoria's name flashed across the screen, but Maya swiped it away. Not yet. Not before caffeine. Not before she'd had time to rebuild whatever walls had cracked last night when her father had avoided her eyes and her mother had given away $8 million like Maya was a child who couldn't be trusted with real money. The research paper she'd been reading yesterday still sat on her porch table, marked up with notes in the margins. Coral bleaching patterns in the South Pacific. Temperature fluctuations. pH levels. Data that mattered, work that would outlast her parents' country club memberships and Victoria's Instagram following and all the rest of the performance they called success. She was 2 pages in when Jake's Jeep pulled up, music bleeding through the windows, something old and guitar-heavy that he'd probably found on some vintage streaming service. He emerged with 2 paper bags that smelled like fresh bread and bacon, his hair still wet, his smile immediate when he saw her. Thought you might need reinforcements, he said, climbing the porch steps 2 at a time. He set the bags down and kissed her, tasting like coffee and mint. How bad was it after I left? I stayed for another hour. Maya pulled a breakfast burrito from one of the bags, still warm. Mom spent most of it telling people about Victoria's latest sale. Dad disappeared into his neural feed. Victoria looked at me like I'd committed fraud by not announcing my net worth at the door, you okay? Jake settled into the chair across from her, his knee brushing hers under the small table. Define okay, fair point. He unwrapped his own burrito, took a bite, studied her with those sharp eyes that saw too much. You know you don't have to prove anything to them. Right, I know, do you though? He reached across the table, his fingers finding hers. Because from where I'm sitting, you just let them give away $8 million without saying a word about what you actually have. That's either enlightenment or self-punishment, and I'm not sure which. Maya looked at their joined hands, his calloused from years of swimming and physical work, hers stained with chemicals from the lab. What was I supposed to say? Actually, Mom, I don't need your money because I'm already worth more than Victoria? That would have gone over well, maybe not those words specifically. His thumb traced circles on her palm, that familiar gesture that always grounded her. But something. Anything. You stood there and let them diminish you when you could have what? Proved I'm just as shallow as they are? Turned it into a competition about who has more zeros in their bank account? She pulled her hand back, wrapping both around her coffee mug. That's exactly what Mom wanted. For me to show that I care about the money, that I'm playing the same game. I won't give her that. Jake was quiet for a moment, eating his breakfast, watching the waves. Finally he said, you know there's a middle ground between silent martyr and shallow competitor, right? You're allowed to defend yourself. You're allowed to say hey, maybe don't assume I'm broke just because I don't plaster my wealth across social media. Is that what you would have done? Hell yes. I'd have pulled up my portfolio on the holographic display and asked your mom if she wanted to compare asset values. Despite everything, Maya laughed. No, you wouldn't, you're right. I'd have done something much more petty. He grinned. Probably bought the country club and banned her from it. Very mature. I never claimed maturity. He stood, collected their trash, then held out his hand. Come on. Waves are good this morning. Let's get wet and forget about people who don't deserve this much space in your head. Maya took his hand and let him pull her up. His arms came around her waist, his chin resting on top of her head. They stood like that for a long moment, listening to the ocean, feeling each other breathe. I love you, he said into her hair. Not because of what you have or what you do or what your family thinks. Just because you're you. I need you to remember that when they make you doubt it. I love you too, she whispered. Even when you're annoyingly right about things, especially then, he corrected, and kissed her before she could argue. 2 weeks later, Victoria's name appeared on Maya's display at 7 in the morning. Maya was in the lab, 3 hours into a data analysis session, her team scattered around the space in that comfortable silence of people who worked well together. She almost ignored the call. Almost, hey, she said, accepting the audio-only connection. Around her, equipment hummed and beeped, the soft sounds of scientific work in progress. Are you busy? Victoria's voice was tight, strained in a way Maya recognized from childhood. This was crisis voice. This was something has gone wrong voice. Maya's first instinct was concern. Her second was suspicion. I'm at work. What's up? I need to talk to you. In person. Are you free for coffee later, Victoria, please? I know I don't have the right to ask. I know I was awful to you at the party. Just, please. 1 hour. I'll come to you. Maya closed her eyes, counted to 5, felt Dr. Reeves watching her from across the lab. Fine. There's a place called Driftwood Coffee on PCH near my house. 2 o'clock, thank you. Victoria disconnected before Maya could change her mind. Dr. Reeves crossed the lab, his expression concerned behind his protective eyewear. At 65, with more degrees than wall space to hang them, he'd been Maya's mentor since graduate school. Everything okay, family, Maya said, which explained everything. Ah. The dreaded F word. He patted her shoulder. Take the afternoon if you need it. The coral polyps aren't going anywhere, thanks. I think I'll stay here where things make sense. Science always makes sense. People rarely do. That's why I prefer the ocean. He returned to his station, already absorbed in whatever data was scrolling across his screens. Maya tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept circling back to Victoria's voice, that note of genuine distress beneath the usual polish. In 32 years of sisterhood, Victoria had called Maya for help exactly twice, once when she'd locked herself out of her apartment in college, once when she'd needed a kidney donor match for some public registry campaign and wanted the family to participate. Neither time had been about actual need. Both had been about convenience. This felt different. Driftwood Coffee was the kind of place that served drinks in ceramic mugs instead of disposable cups. That had actual books on shelves instead of neural downloads, that played music through speakers instead of direct auditory feeds. Maya arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a corner table with a view of the parking lot. She'd know when Victoria arrived. Her sister didn't do subtle entrances, but the woman who walked through the door at 2:03 wasn't the Victoria from the anniversary party. No Chanel. No diamonds. Just jeans, actual jeans, not the designer kind with embedded tech, and a plain sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail, sunglasses that looked functional rather than fashionable. She spotted Maya immediately and something in her face crumpled before she caught it. Reconstructed her expression into something neutral. Maya stood. You want coffee, please? Something with enough caffeine to restart a heart. Maya ordered 2 of the strongest drinks on the menu and returned to find Victoria sitting hunched over the table, scrolling through something on her wrist display with the jerky movements of someone barely holding it together. Here. Maya set the coffee down. Victoria looked up, and Maya saw what the sunglasses had hidden: red-rimmed eyes, the smudged remnants of expensive makeup, the kind of exhaustion that came from crying hard enough to exhaust yourself. Thank you. Victoria wrapped both hands around the mug like she was cold despite the warmth of the cafe. I know you don't want to hear from me. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Victoria took a long drink, winced at the heat. I saw the way you looked at me at the party. The way you've looked at me for years. Like I'm the enemy. Maya sat back in her chair, folding her arms. Did you come here to make me comfort you about how hard it is to be the favorite? No. Victoria set down her mug carefully, precisely, like she was worried she'd break it if she moved too fast. I came here to tell you that I'm an idiot. That I've been an idiot for most of my life. And that you were right about everything. I'm going to need you to be more specific. Victoria laughed, a brittle sound without humor. Where do I even start? How about the fact that I just spent this morning at my real estate office planning the biggest deal of my career, and when my assistant pulled up the property records, I found out my broke little sister owns $15 million worth of prime coastal real estate. Maya's stomach dropped. Victoria, don't. Victoria held up a hand. Don't explain. Don't apologize. Don't do whatever you're about to do. Just let me finish. She took a breath. Chen Coastal Trust. That's you, isn't it? M for Maya. Maya said nothing. Confirming felt dangerous. Denying felt dishonest. She settled for silence and waited. I hired an investigator. Victoria pulled out her wrist display, projected a holographic report that hung between them, glowing with Maya's financial details. Salary. Property holdings. Investment portfolio. Everything laid bare in cold, precise data. I told myself I was doing due diligence for the deal. Making sure we knew who we were negotiating with. But really I needed to know if it was true. If you'd been lying to us this whole time, I never lied. Maya's voice came out harder than she'd intended. No one ever asked, no one ever asked, Victoria repeated, tasting the words. That's your defense? That we didn't specifically inquire about your secret fortune? It's not secret. It's private. There's a difference. Maya leaned forward, her own hands flat on the table. You know what you did on your 25th birthday, Victoria? You threw a party with 200 guests and a ice sculpture of your own face. You live-streamed the whole thing. You posted every gift you received with price tags visible. You made your life a public performance, so I made different choices. I didn't hide my success. I just didn't broadcast it. And if anyone in our family had ever actually asked, about my work, my life, my anything, I would have told them. But they didn't. You didn't. You were too busy assuming, Victoria flinched. You could have corrected those assumptions. Why? So you could feel better about condescending to me? So Mom could divide her attention more evenly between her successful daughters instead of just having one success and one disappointment? Maya shook her head. I stopped trying to earn approval I was never going to get. I built a life I'm proud of instead. I'm sorry if that's offensive to you. It's not. Victoria started again. I'm not offended. I'm humiliated. Do you have any idea how it feels to realize you've spent 15 years pitying someone who doesn't need your pity? That every time I offered you my old clothes or made comments about your lifestyle or felt superior because I had more, I was just making a fool of myself. Welcome to how I've felt at every family gathering since I was 8 years old. The words landed hard. Victoria sat back like she'd been slapped. Around them, the cafe continued its normal rhythm, espresso machines hissing, conversations overlapping, music playing, but their corner felt separate, isolated in its tension. You're right, Victoria said finally. You're absolutely right. I've been awful to you. We've all been awful to you. And I don't know how to fix that. You can't, Maya said simply. You can stop doing it. You can be better going forward. But you can't unring bells, Victoria. You can't take back 30 years of being dismissed and diminished and compared unfavorably. You can apologize, and I might forgive you, but I won't forget. Fair. Victoria finished her coffee, set the mug down, met Maya's eyes directly for the first time. Can I ask you something? And can you please be honest? Depends on the question. Why didn't you tell me? Not the family. Just me. We're sisters. We used to be close before everything. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? Maya considered lying. Considered softening it. Decided Victoria deserved honesty even if it hurt. Because you would have made it a competition. Because knowing I was successful wouldn't have changed how you treated me, it would have just changed what you competed over. And because I wanted to see if you could love me when you thought I had nothing. That was my test, Victoria. You failed it. Victoria's face crumpled again, tears spilling over despite her obvious efforts to contain them. I did, didn't I? Yeah. You did. For what it's worth, Victoria's voice broke. She cleared her throat, tried again. For what it's worth, I think I always knew. Deep down. That you were better than me. Not richer or more successful, just better. More genuine. More yourself. And I hated you for it because I didn't know how to be that. I still don't. Then learn, Maya said. Stop performing. Stop comparing. Stop measuring your worth by Mom's approval or your follower count or your bank balance. Figure out who you actually are when no one's watching, and be that person. Is it really that simple? It's that simple. It's not easy. But it's simple. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally Victoria said, "The property deal. The one your trust is blocking. I was going to ask you to sell or partner with us. That's why I came here, and now I'm realizing that you probably bought those properties specifically to protect them from developers like me, and asking you to sell would be missing the entire point of who you are." Victoria managed a weak smile. "Am I close? Close enough." Maya stood, collecting their mugs. "I need to get back to work, right?" "Of course." Victoria gathered her things, fumbling with her bag. At the door she paused. "Maya? Thank you. For the coffee. For being honest. For not pretending I didn't hurt you just to make me feel better." "You're welcome," Maya said, and meant it. She watched Victoria leave, watched her sister sit in her leased Escalade for a full 5 minutes before driving away. Something had shifted in that conversation, some fundamental understanding reached. Whether it would change anything long-term, Maya didn't know. But it was a start. Her wrist display buzzed. "Jake, dinner tonight?" "I'm cooking." "Well, I'm ordering and pretending I cooked." "Close enough." Maya smiled and typed back, "Your place or mine?" "Yours." "I like your porch. You like my porch or you like me on my porch?" "Both." "Definitely both." "See you at 7. Bring your appetite." The flirting was easy with him, natural, the kind of back and forth that made her feel wanted without making her feel objectified. She'd dated before Jake, a series of men who either wanted to save her from her modest lifestyle or couldn't understand why she didn't want to upgrade it. Jake had walked into her life at that beach cleanup, sat down next to her in the sand, and started talking about ocean currents like they were old friends. He'd never asked about her family or her finances or her plans. He'd asked what made her happy. And when she'd told him, he'd listened like her answer mattered. The lab was nearly empty when she returned, just Dr. Reeves and one graduate student hunched over microscopes. Reeves looked up when she entered. "Crisis averted, crisis acknowledged, anyway. Aversion pending." Maya pulled up her data screens, trying to find the focus she'd had that morning. "How's the polyp regeneration looking? Promising?" "Very promising actually." He gestured to his screens. "Come look at this." Maya crossed the lab and studied the data. Growth rates. Survival percentages. Colony expansion. It was good, better than good. It was breakthrough material. "This is incredible," she breathed. "This is your work," Reeves corrected. "Your protocol. Your technique. Your research design." "I'm just the old man taking notes. You're the principal investigator, and you're the genius who figured out how to accelerate coral regeneration by 40%. Maya, this could change everything. This could save reefs we thought were dead." "Do you understand what that means?" She did. She understood it in her bones, in the part of her that had chosen this path despite her mother's disapproval and her sister's mockery and everyone who'd ever suggested marine biology was a hobby rather than a career. This was why. These numbers. This data. This proof that meaningful work mattered more than material success. The Foundation's going to want to expand the program. Reeves continued. More funding. More sites. More staff. You'll need to hire, probably double your team. And Maya? He waited until she looked at him. You'll need to start taking credit. No more hiding behind "we did this and the team accomplished that." This is yours. Own it. I'm not good at that, then get good at it. Because people need to know your name. Not for your ego, for the work. If we're going to get the funding and support to scale this globally, the scientific community needs to understand who's leading this research. And right now, that's you. Maya's wrist display buzzed again. This time it was her mother's name. She ignored it. I'll think about it, she told Reeves. Don't think too long. The foundation board meets in 2 weeks. They're going to want to hear from you directly. She worked until 6, until the data blurred and her eyes burned and her back ached from hunching over screens. The lab had that peaceful quality of late afternoon, the light going golden through the windows, the ocean visible in the distance. Maya stood at the window and watched the water, thinking about coral polyps and family dynamics and the way success could look like so many different things depending on who was measuring. Her wrist display showed 7 missed calls from her mother. 3 from Victoria. 1 from her father, which was unusual enough that she almost listened to the voicemail. Almost. Instead, she packed up her things, locked the lab, and drove home to where Jake was waiting on her porch with takeout containers and that smile that made her forget why she'd ever been upset about anything. Rough day, he asked, handing her a beer from the cooler he'd brought. Complicated day. She sat beside him, their shoulders touching, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Victoria knows what, everything. The properties. The job. The money. She hired an investigator. Jake whistled low. How'd that go? Better than expected. Worse than I'd hoped. Somewhere in the middle. Maya took a long drink. The beer was cold, perfect. She cried. Apologized. Asked why I didn't tell her. What did you say? The truth. That I wanted to see if she could love me when she thought I had nothing. Harsh, true, both things can be real. Jake's arm came around her shoulders, pulling her against his side. You okay? I think so. Ask me again tomorrow. They ate straight from the containers, passing them back and forth, talking about nothing and everything. Jake told her about the quarterback he'd worked with that morning, how the guy had cried with relief when his mobility tests came back strong. Maya told him about the coral data, the breakthrough that might actually save dying reefs. He listened like it was the most important thing he'd ever heard. When the containers were empty and the sun had set and the stars were starting to appear. Jake stood and pulled her to her feet. Dance with me, he said. There's no music, so? We'll make our own. He pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other finding hers. They swayed in the darkness, moving to rhythm only they could hear. His chin rested on top of her head. Her eyes closed. This, she thought. This is what matters. Not the 8 million her mother gave away. Not Victoria's crisis or her family's approval or any of the performance they mistook for love. Just this. Just them. Just the simple truth of being known and chosen and enough. Marry me, Jake said into her hair. Maya pulled back to look at him. What, marry me? Not someday. Not eventually. Soon. Next month. Next week. Tomorrow if you want. His hands came up to frame her face. I know we talked about waiting. I know you wanted to establish your career more. But life's too short to wait for perfect timing, and I don't want to spend another day without you being my wife. Jake, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. But Maya, I'm serious. I want to marry you. I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours and we chose each other. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her mouth. Just think about it, okay, she whispered. I'll think about it, but she already knew her answer. Had known it from the moment he'd asked. Yes. Yes to him. Yes to this life they were building together. Yes to choosing depth over surface, meaning over materialism, authentic connection over performed success. Yes to everything her family had never understood about what actually mattered. The notification came through Maya's neural interface at 6:47 a.m., cutting through the fog of half-sleep with the insistence of her mother's personality made digital. Patricia Chen had learned to weaponize technology the way other people weaponized silence, with precision and an understanding of maximum impact. The message floated in Maya's vision, translucent text overlaying the pre-dawn darkness of her bedroom. Family gathering tonight. 7 p.m. Rosewood Country Club. Your presence is required, not optional. Dress appropriately. Maya lay still, watching the words hover like an accusation. Her cottage was quiet except for the rhythmic crash of waves against the shore 50 meters away, a sound that had replaced alarm clocks and anxiety medications and all the other tools she'd tried before learning that the ocean was the only thing that actually calmed her. The message blinked insistently, waiting for acknowledgement. She dismissed it with a thought and the familiar guilt that came with every interaction with her family, the sense that she was failing at something fundamental simply by being herself. Her wrist display showed 3 earlier messages she'd ignored. All from Patricia. All variations on the same theme. Why haven't you responded? I need confirmation you're coming. Maya, this is important. The subtext was always the same, you're disappointing me again. She pulled herself out of bed and stood at the window. The beach stretched empty in both directions, the sand still dark with morning damp, the sky beginning its slow transformation from black to navy to that particular shade of blue that existed nowhere else but over the Pacific at sunrise. Her cottage sat on a small bluff above the water, 800 square feet of weathered wood and salt-stained windows that her mother called quaint in a tone that meant embarrassing. The furniture was mismatched, a couch from an estate sale, a table she'd found on the side of the road and refinished herself. Chairs that didn't match each other, let alone anything else in the room. Research papers covered every surface, marked with her handwritten notes because she still preferred ink to holographic annotation. Her wetsuit hung over the bathroom door, perpetually damp. Jars of sand samples lined the windowsills, each one labeled with coordinates and dates in her precise script. Outside, she could see Jake's silhouette already in the water, sitting on his board beyond the break. Even from this distance she recognized the set of his shoulders, the way he scanned the horizon for the next set. 2 years and her chest still tightened when she spotted him, that involuntary response that embarrassed her even as it made her feel more alive. She made coffee in a 15-year-old machine that required specific handling, the right amount of water, the correct angle when you poured, patience while it stuttered to life. The mug she chose had a crack running down one side and faded letters that said, "Save the Oceans." It had come free with a donation she'd made in graduate school, back when $5 felt like a significant contribution. Now she could write checks with several more zeros and still live in a cottage where nothing matched and everything was held together with salt air and stubbornness. The coffee was too hot, but she drank it anyway, needing the burn, needing something sharp to cut through the dread that had settled in her stomach the moment her mother's message arrived. Family gathering. Required attendance. Dress appropriately. Translation: Victoria will be there being perfect, you will be there being disappointing, and we will all pretend this is normal. She pulled on her wetsuit and grabbed her board. The morning surf session was non-negotiable, had been non-negotiable since she'd moved here 3 years ago. It was the spine that held the rest of her life in place, the ritual that reminded her who she was before her family started telling her who she should be. The water was cold enough to steal breath, sharp and clean and honest in a way human interaction rarely was. Maya paddled out hard, feeling her shoulders burn, her lungs work. Jake turned when he heard her approach. And his smile was immediate and unguarded, the kind of expression that made her forget temporarily that most people looked at her with either pity or confusion. "Morning, Dr. Chen," he said, formal in that teasing way he had. Permission to approach, denied. I'm grumpy and caffeinated and I got a message from my mother, ah. The trifecta of doom. He paddled closer anyway, ignoring her mock protest. Water dripped from his hair, caught the early light. He had the kind of face that looked better for being weathered, all sharp angles and laugh lines, a nose that had been broken at least once. His body was athletic in the way that came from use rather than gym memberships, muscled from years of actual swimming rather than simulated exercise. What's the damage? Family thing tonight. 7 p.m. Country club. She wants me to dress appropriately. Maya made air quotes with one hand, nearly toppling off her board. Define appropriately, rich. Polished. Like someone who doesn't spend their mornings in the ocean covered in saltwater and their days elbow-deep in coral samples. She caught a small wave, rode it for a few seconds before paddling back out. Like Victoria, Jake's expression shifted, that careful neutrality he adopted whenever her sister's name came up. You want me there for moral support? I clean up okay when motivated. You'd subject yourself to that voluntarily? I'd subject myself to significantly worse things for you. He said it lightly, but his eyes were serious. Besides, I'm curious about these people who somehow managed to not notice they raised someone extraordinary. Maya felt heat that had nothing to do with the wetsuit. You're biased, absolutely. Doesn't make me wrong. He caught her hand where it rested on her board. His palm was rough with calluses, warm despite the cold water. Come on. Let's catch some real waves before you have to go face the sharks. They surfed until the sun cleared the horizon, until Maya's arms ached and her mind had quieted and she felt more like herself than she had since waking up to her mother's message. On the beach afterward, Jake pulled her close and kissed her with salt water still dripping between them. His hand sliding to the small of her back in that possessive way that made her spine straighten and her breath catch. 7 p.m., he murmured against her mouth. 7 p.m., she confirmed. But Jake, they're going to eat you alive, let them try. I bite back. He kissed her again, slower this time, thorough enough that she forgot temporarily about country clubs and appropriate dress and all the ways she was about to disappoint her mother. When they broke apart, she was flushed and breathing hard and definitely not thinking about her family. Go be brilliant at your science, he said. I'll be brilliant at pretending I know how to tie a tie. You know how to tie a tie, yeah, but I like when you think I'm helpless. Makes you feel needed. He dodged her attempt to shove him, laughing. See you tonight, Dr. Chen. She watched him jog back to his jeep. A beat-up Wrangler covered in surfboard stickers and sun damage that would make her mother flinch. Everything about Jake would make her mother flinch, the casual confidence, the refusal to apologize for his choices, the way he looked at Maya like she was exactly enough without any modifications necessary. Patricia Chen had spent 32 years trying to modify Maya into an acceptable daughter. Jake had spent 2 years making her feel like no modifications were required. The drive to the Scripps Institution of Oceanography took 40 minutes through traffic that flowed in organized patterns, vehicles communicating with each other through networks Maya barely understood and didn't particularly care to. Her Honda required actual steering, which flagged her as either poor or eccentric to the autonomous vehicles that surrounded her. She preferred it this way, hands on the wheel, making her own decisions about speed and trajectory and when to change lanes. The lab was her sanctuary, had been since graduate school. It smelled like salt water and chemicals and the particular scent of scientific equipment running constantly. Her team was already there when she arrived, 6 researchers in various stages of their morning routines, coffee in hand, absorbed in data screens and sample analysis. They looked up when she entered, offering casual greetings that didn't require performance or pretense. Dr. Reeves was at his station, 65 years old with more degrees than wall space and a permanent squint from decades of microscope work. He'd been her mentor since grad school, had believed in her research when everyone else suggested she focus on something more practical. He looked up when Maya dropped her bag, his expression shifting to concern. "That's your family face," he observed. "What happened? Command performance tonight." "Mother has decreed my presence required at some country club gathering." Ah. The dreaded F word. He returned to his microscope. "You know you're allowed to say no to these things. Theoretically, yes. Practically, the fallout isn't worth it." Maya pulled up her data screens, trying to focus on the numbers that made sense rather than the family dynamics that never would. "How's the polyp regeneration looking? Come see for yourself." She crossed the lab and studied his screens. Growth rates. Survival percentages. Colony expansion patterns. The data was better than good, it was breakthrough material, the kind of results that could change everything about how they approached coral restoration. "This is incredible," she breathed. "This is your protocol," Reeves corrected. "Your research design. Your innovation." "I'm just the old man taking notes." He looked at her seriously. "Maya, you need to start taking credit for your work. Real credit. No more hiding behind 'we accomplished' and 'the team discovered.' This is yours, the whole team contributed, and you led them. You designed the study. You solved the problems everyone else said were unsolvable." He pulled up additional data, gestured to the screens. "The Foundation board meets in 2 weeks. They're going to want to hear from you directly about expansion plans. More funding. More sites. Probably doubling your team." Maya stared at the numbers, feeling that familiar disconnect between what she'd accomplished and what her family saw when they looked at her. These screens showed work that could save dying reefs, could restore ecosystems everyone else had written off as doomed. This mattered. This was real. But tonight at the country club, her mother would introduce her as still pursuing her passion for marine life in that tone that made passion sound like a hobby, like something cute children did before growing up and getting real jobs like Victoria. Her wrist display buzzed. "Patricia again, I need confirmation you're attending tonight. Please respond." Maya dismissed it without answering. Her mother would take that as confirmation. Patricia Chen had never understood the concept of actual consent. Silence meant agreement, protest meant negotiation, anything short of physical absence meant you'd eventually comply with whatever she wanted. "You okay?" Reeves asked. "Define okay, fair point." He returned to his work. "For what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than I would. If my family spent decades telling me I was wasting my life while I was actually revolutionizing marine conservation, I'd have significantly harsher words than you do. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I should have harsher words, or maybe you're just a better person than they deserve." Maya worked until noon, until the data blurred and her shoulders ached from hunching over screens. Her team moved around her in comfortable silence, the kind of shared space that came from people who actually respected each other's work. No competition. No comparison. No performance. Just shared purpose and mutual dedication to something that mattered more than individual glory. At 12:30, her display showed another message. This time from Victoria. "Mom says you're not responding. You are coming tonight, right? It's important. Please don't make this difficult." The presumption in that message, that Maya's hesitation was about being difficult rather than about having legitimate reasons to avoid family gatherings, crystallized something she'd been trying to articulate for years. They'd never once considered that their events might be painful for her. That showing up to be compared unfavorably to Victoria, to be dismissed and diminished and treated like the family disappointment. Might be something she'd avoid for reasons that had nothing to do with being difficult and everything to do with self-preservation. She typed back, "I'll be there." Then, because she couldn't help herself, "Jake's coming too." The response was almost instant, "Oh. Okay. That's great. Mom will be thrilled." The sarcasm was so thick Maya could taste it. Her mother would absolutely not be thrilled. Patricia Chen had opinions about Jake that she'd made abundantly clear during their one previous meeting, opinions about his Jeep, his occupation, his refusal to wear a neural interface, his general aura of not giving a damn about status markers. Maya had spent that entire lunch watching her mother's face pinch tighter and tighter while Jake asked earnest questions about her father's business and complimented her mother's choice of restaurant with the kind of sincerity that couldn't be categorized as either mockery or submission. He'd been genuinely interested or genuinely good at faking interest, and Patricia hadn't known how to categorize him, which had made her deeply uncomfortable. Victoria sent another message, "Listen, I know you and Mom have your thing. But tonight's actually important. She's making some kind of announcement." "I think it's about the will." Maya's stomach dropped. The will. Of course. Patricia Chen didn't summon family gatherings for bonding, she summoned them for pronouncements, for establishing hierarchy, for making it clear who mattered and who didn't. The Malibu property had been a topic of conversation for months. That sprawling beachfront house David Chen had bought in 1985 when coastal real estate was still accessible to people who weren't tech billionaires. Current value, $8 million, maybe more depending on the market. Maya had known it would go to Victoria eventually. Victoria was the successful one, the one who understood property values and investment strategies and all the other things that mattered to people who measured worth in quantum credits and social standing. She typed back, "Thanks for the heads up, Victoria. You're really okay with this? With the property going to me?" Maya stared at that message for a long moment. Was she okay with it? The rational part of her brain knew the Malibu house didn't matter. She owned more valuable property already, had more than enough money, didn't need her parents' assets to secure her future. The emotional part of her brain, the part that was still 8 years old showing her mother a straight-A report card and being ignored, wanted to scream that no, she wasn't okay with it, that it was just one more concrete example of how little her parents valued her, how completely they'd written her off as the disappointment daughter who'd never quite measure up. She typed, "It makes sense. You know more about real estate, Victoria." "That's not really an answer, Maya. It's the only answer I have. See you tonight." She put her display on Do Not Disturb and returned to work. The coral polyps didn't care about inheritance drama. They grew or didn't grow based on temperature and pH levels and light exposure and all the other factors Maya could actually control through careful research and methodical experimentation. There was something profoundly comforting about working in a field where results were based on evidence rather than favoritism, where success was measurable rather than subjective, where being good at your job meant something concrete rather than being the daughter your mother preferred. At 5 p.m., Reeves physically removed the data pad from her hands. "Go home. Get ready. Face the family firing squad. You'll survive. You sound very confident about that. I've known you for 8 years. You're tougher than you think." He squeezed her shoulder. "And for what it's worth, your parents are idiots if they can't see what you've accomplished. But you already know that." The drive home felt longer than it should have, traffic thick with people heading to wherever they performed their evening rituals. Maya's cottage looked smaller when she pulled up, more vulnerable, like it was bracing itself for judgment. Inside, she stood in front of her closet and confronted the limited options for dressing appropriately according to Patricia Chen's standards. The navy dress she'd worn to her cousin's wedding hung in the back. Still in decent condition despite being 3 years old and purchased at a consignment shop for $45. It was simple, elegant in an understated way, the kind of dress that would pass Patricia's inspection without drawing attention. Maya pulled it out and held it up to the mirror, seeing not the dress but her mother's face when she'd first worn it, that pinched expression that said, "Couldn't you have tried harder?" She was halfway through getting ready when Jake let himself in through the unlocked door, carrying a garment bag and wearing an expression of amused resignation. "I borrowed a suit," he announced. "From a friend who occasionally has to pretend he's respectable. Fair warning, it might not fit perfectly, and I definitely don't know how to tie a tie despite what I said this morning." Maya emerged from the bathroom still in her robe, hair wet from the shower. Jake stopped mid-sentence, his eyes doing that thing where they tracked over her with obvious appreciation that made her feel exposed and desired simultaneously. "Hi," she said, "hi yourself." He crossed the small space between them, his hands finding her waist. "You know you don't have to do this. We could stay here. Order takeout. Let your family wonder where you are." Tempting. "But then my mother would show up at my door tomorrow, and I'd rather face her with witnesses." Valid point. He kissed her forehead. "Where's your bathroom?" "I need to attempt transformation into acceptable boyfriend material." 20 minutes later, Maya stood in her living room and reassessed everything she thought she knew about Jake Morrison. The suit fit him perfectly, dark gray, tailored, expensive in a way that didn't advertise itself. His hair was still slightly damp but styled rather than chaotic. He'd shaved. He looked like someone who belonged at country clubs and gala events, like someone who navigated wealth and status with ease. "You look," she couldn't finish the sentence. "Uncomfortable?" he supplied. "Because I am. This tie is trying to strangle me, let me." She crossed to him and adjusted the knot. Her fingers working the silk while very aware of how close they were standing, how good he smelled, how his hands had settled on her hips like they belonged there. "Where did you really get this suit?" "I told you. A friend, Jake." He smiled, that slow expression that made her stomach flip. "Fine. I own it. I own several, actually. Turns out when you consult for professional athletes and tech executives, they expect you to look the part occasionally." His thumbs traced small circles on her hip bones. "I just don't wear them around you because I like that you don't care about that stuff." "I don't care about that stuff, I know. That's why I love you." He said it casually, like it wasn't the third time he'd used that word. Like it wasn't still new enough to make her breath catch. "But tonight I'm going to look just respectable enough that your mother can't immediately write me off as the surf instructor who corrupted her disappointment daughter." "I'm not a disappointment," Maya said, but the words came out uncertain. "No, you're not. You're extraordinary. Your family just doesn't know how to see it." He kissed her softly, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "Ready to go remind them?" The Rosewood Country Club sprawled across 12 acres of prime coastal real estate, its architecture all sweeping curves and glass panels that caught the sunset and threw her back in blinding reflections. Maya's Honda looked almost defiant parked among the Teslas and Mercedes and luxury vehicles whose names she didn't recognize. Their surfaces gleaming with the kind of maintenance that cost more than her monthly stipend. The valet who approached them was young, probably early 20s, and his expression went through several rapid shifts when he saw her car: confusion, poorly hidden disdain, professional neutrality. He opened her door without comment, but Maya saw the way his eyes tracked to the more expensive vehicles, the slight curl of his lip. "Daughter of the guests of honor," she said before he could suggest she'd come to the wrong entrance. "Maya Chen." His expression shifted again, surprise, recalculation. "Of course, Ms. Chen. Welcome." He handed Jake a physical key, seeming momentarily confused by the Honda's lack of smart access technology. Inside, the club was exactly what she'd expected: aggressive opulence disguised as taste, crystal chandeliers with enough embedded computing power to run a small city, holographic displays showing curated moments from her parents' marriage, waiters offering champagne from trays that floated at shoulder height using magnetic fields. The guests were Patricia's people, business associates, wealthy friends, social climbers wearing their net worth in jewelry that doubled as data displays and clothing embedded with reactive technology. Maya spotted Victoria immediately. Hard not to, her sister moved through the crowd like she owned it, which in a social sense she probably did. But something was different. The dress was still designer but not the latest smart couture line. The jewelry was minimal. Her smile, when she spotted Maya, looked almost genuine rather than performative. "You came," Victoria said, crossing to them. Her eyes slid to Jake, widening slightly. "And you brought Jake." "Hi. You look different than I remember." "It's the tie," Jake said easily. "Adds 10 points of respectability," Victoria laughed, surprising them both. "I'm glad you're here. Both of you. Fair warning, Mom's in rare form tonight. When isn't she?" Maya asked, then regretted the harshness. They'd had one decent conversation at Driftwood Coffee 2 weeks ago, one moment of actual honesty between them. She was trying to honor that. "Fair," Victoria said. "Listen, before the whole thing starts, I just want you to know that I tried to talk to her about the property division. About maybe reconsidering making it more equal." "What did she say?" "She said you wouldn't care because money doesn't matter to you." Victoria's voice was careful. "I think she actually believes that. That you're somehow above caring about inheritance." "I am above caring about inheritance," Maya said. "It was even mostly true, but you're not above caring about what it represents." Victoria met her eyes directly. "About what it means that she's giving me everything valuable and you basically nothing." "I get that now." "I'm sorry I didn't get it before." Before Maya could respond, their mother materialized beside them with the timing of someone who'd been watching for their arrival. Patricia Chin wore a dress that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless, her smile bright and brittle as glass. "Maya. Finally. I was beginning to think you'd decided not to come." Her eyes tracked over Maya's dress, her expression flickering with that familiar disappointment. "Oh, you wore that dress again. How economical of you." "Hi, Mom." Patricia's attention shifted to Jake, and Maya watched her mother's face go through rapid calculations. The suit registered. The confident posture registered. The way he stood close to Maya with his hand on her lower back registered. Patricia's smile tightened. "Jake. How unexpected to see you here, Mrs. Chen." Jake offered his hand, which Patricia took limply. "Thank you for the invitation." "Yes, well. Family gatherings are important." She'd already dismissed him, turning back to Maya. "Your father wants to speak with you before dinner. He's in the private conference room with the lawyers." "The lawyers?" Of course there were lawyers. Patricia Chen didn't make announcements, she made legal proceedings. "Now?" Maya asked. "Now." Patricia's tone left no room for negotiation. She drifted away, pulled into conversation with someone whose neural display marked them as a level 8 executive, the kind of person Patricia collected like trophies. Victoria touched Maya's arm. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No. I should do this alone." Maya looked at Jake. "Will you be okay out here? I'll charm the masses with my respectable tie." He kissed her cheek. "Go. I'll be here when you need rescuing." The conference room was smaller than the main hall, more intimate, with that sterile quality of spaces designed for business rather than celebration. David Chen stood by the window, his back to the door, shoulders tight with tension Maya recognized from childhood. Her father had perfected the art of being physically present while emotionally absent, of occupying space without actually engaging with the people in it. Two lawyers sat at the table, middle-aged professionals with the kind of expensive neutral expressions that came from years of delivering news people didn't want to hear. They stood when Maya entered, offering polite greetings she barely registered. "Maya," her father said without turning around. "Thank you for coming. Mom said you wanted to talk." "Yes." He finally turned, and Maya was struck by how old he looked, how tired. "We're updating our estate plans. Your mother thought you should hear the details directly rather than finding out later, okay?" Maya remained standing near the door, unwilling to commit fully to the room. One of the lawyers pulled up a holographic display, property records, financial documents, the three-dimensional rendering of the Malibu house that Maya had known since childhood. The primary asset in question is the beachfront property purchased in 1985. Current assessed value is $8.2 million. The number hung in the air like an accusation. This property will transfer to Victoria Chen Morrison upon the death of both parents, the lawyer continued in that carefully neutral tone. Ms. Maya Chen will receive a cash inheritance of $150,000 plus selected family heirlooms as detailed in the attached documentation, $150,000. Maya's research budget for a single quarter. The cost of her most recent property acquisition's closing fees. A number that would have been meaningful once, before she'd built a life that didn't require her parents' money to validate it. We believe this division reflects each daughter's respective abilities to manage significant assets, the other lawyer added. Victoria's experience in real estate and property management makes her the logical choice for inheriting real property of this value. Maya looked at her father, who still wouldn't meet her eyes. "And you agree with this?" "Your mother," he started. "I asked what you think, Dad." "Not what Mom thinks." David Chen finally looked at her directly. "I think Victoria understands property value and investment in a way that you've never been interested in. I think this is a practical decision based on each of your strengths, right?" Maya felt something settle in her chest, something cold and clarifying. "Because my strengths don't include anything financially valuable, that's not what I said." "It's what you meant." She looked at the lawyers. "Is there anything else? We'll need your signature acknowledging that you've been informed of these arrangements." "Fine." Maya crossed to the table and signed the holographic document with sharp, angry movements. Her signature glowed briefly before being absorbed into the legal file. "Are we done, Maya?" her father started. "Are we done?" The lawyers exchanged glances. "Yes, Ms. Chen." "Thank you for your time." Maya walked out without looking back, her hands shaking with the effort of keeping her expression neutral. The hallway was empty, thank God, giving her a moment to breathe, to rebuild the walls that kept her functional in situations like this. Behind her, she heard her father's voice, muffled through the door. "That went better than expected, better than expected." Because what? She hadn't cried? Hadn't begged? Hadn't demonstrated that she cared about being valued at less than 2% of her sister's inheritance. She found Jake exactly where she'd left him, now surrounded by a small group that included her Uncle Robert and several people she didn't recognize. He extracted himself smoothly when he saw her face, his hand finding hers immediately. "That bad?" he murmured. "Can we leave yet? Give me 5 minutes to commit a minor act of social terrorism and we can go." He pulled her into an alcove away from the main crowd. His hands framed her face, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. "What happened, later?" "I'll tell you later. Right now I just need to survive dinner without screaming." "Reasonable goal." "I support that goal." He kissed her forehead. "You know what I was just thinking?" "What?" "That every person in this room is going to spend tonight assuming they know exactly who you are and what you're worth. And they're all going to be wrong." His smile was sharp, knowing. That's got to be worth something. Despite everything, Maya laughed. You're ridiculous. I'm strategically ridiculous. There's a difference. He offered his arm. Come on, Dr. Chen. Let's go watch your family underestimate you one more time. I'm starting to find it entertaining. They entered the main hall together, and Maya felt every eye track their entrance, felt the weight of assumptions and judgments and all the ways she was about to fail to meet expectations. But Jake's hand was steady on her back, and somewhere in the room Victoria was trying to be a better sister, and Maya owned property worth more than everything her parents were giving away tonight combined. She could survive this. She'd survived worse. And if they wanted to write her off as the disappointment daughter who didn't understand property values, let them. She knew exactly what she was worth, and it had nothing to do with her parents' approval or their inheritance or any of the markers they'd spent her lifetime telling her mattered. The best revenge, Maya thought as her mother called everyone to dinner, wasn't proving them wrong. It was building a life so complete, so authentic, so aligned with her actual values that their opinions became irrelevant background noise. They'd given her last place in their hierarchy. Fine. She'd take it. Because she'd stopped competing in their game years ago, and they'd been too busy keeping score to notice.